Notice to the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing to address the council form located on either end of the counter and give it to either the chairman or the council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. All comments must be addressed to the council as a whole, and addressing individual council members or staff is not allowed. Speakers should be courteous in their choice of words and actions, and comments shall be limited to the issue and cannot involve individual or staff-related matters. All cell phones and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'd like to call this meeting of the Terrebonne Parish Council to order, and we will have the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Brian Pledger. You have to press it.
Heavenly Father, I ask that you give us wisdom, guidance, and understanding so that we may be able to lead the people of this community. We ask that you bless this country, the state of Louisiana, and most of all, the people of Terrebonne Parish. These and many other blessings we ask in your darling Son Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we please get a roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Michelle, Mr. Amity, Ms. Domain,
Here.
Mr. Darren Guidry, Mr. Babin, Mr. Dirk Guidry, Mr. Trustclair, Mr. Pleasure, Mr. Harding. Mrs. Chairwoman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you. And I do have one letter to read from Councilman Darren Guidry. Please be advised that I will be absent for tonight's council meeting due to a previously scheduled obligation. I have reviewed the agenda and will follow up on matters required to my attention. I apologize for any inconvenience my absence may cause. Thank you. Approved minutes of the regular council session held on May 24th, 2023. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas. Motion passes. Distribute the minutes of the regular council session held on June 14th, 2023. Approve accounts payable lists on 6/20/2023 and 6/26/2023. Moved by Mr. Brian Pledger and second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas. Motion passes. Approve the manual checklist for May 2023.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second by Mr. Brian Pledger. Members, vote your machines. Eight yeas. Motion passes. Item 1, council members request discussion of. Councilman Carl Harding requests an update on water lilies and lateral ditches in Terrebonne Parish. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My objective here is to bridge the gap between government and the citizens. And I don't mind being the person that's actually be at the forefront for this, because basically I've always been boots on the ground within Terrebonne Parish as a whole. But in the full understanding and bridging the gap, we have to understand that, number one, that there are 3 members that sit on this board that represents portions of Bio-Black and in the Gibson area. The other thing about that, district number 2 is basically a 50-50 district in comparisons to, the ratios of people that actually are my constituents and the people that I represent. And thirdly, the go-between, to be the go-between between government and the citizens, I think the most important thing about that in any organization that you have is information and communication. And I think through the opportunities that's this process that we have here, Madam Chairman, I actually ask for you to go to the speaker card so we can actually hear from the citizens. I spoke with administration, Mr. Mike Toots. He's aware of some of the things that may be coming up from the public. And let's see if we can actually bridge the gap where we can have a more effective and efficient government, where we can actually go down and have some resolve by better understanding how government works and what is the expectations of the citizens.
Can we get an update from Mr. Toops first? It might answer some.
Yeah,
of the
Mr.
people's
Toops, can we
questions.
please get an update from
If
you
you don't
first?
mind, Carly.
That is a good
Well,
idea.
The point here is the fact that he
Mr. Harding, let me put your,
my point here is not only not to shush the people. I want the people's voice to be heard. He knows his position that he's in, so therefore, you know what I mean. He know what information he has to give them. I want that voice to be heard. So if he actually present his position, some may feel as if they don't have to speak. But at this point, I would like to have them speak and have him to answer the questions because he may add on or may not be prepared, and then he'll understand what's going on.
yes, Mr. Harding, I'll allow that. And we do have 2 speaker cards, and so, Mr. Toops, if you could write down some notes and then be prepared to answer their questions after. All right, thank you so much. So the first speaker card I have is Mr. Eddie Wilson. He's from North Bayou Black Drive, and he would like to speak about cleaning and draining the ditches and right-of-ways in Gibson. Mr. Wilson, if you could please come up to the podium, and I'd like you to give your name and your address.
Good evening.
Just give us 1 second, sir.
It's
We
on.
have to,
Okay, it's on.
okay, it's on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eddie Wilson Jr., and I have property at 5406 North Bayou Black Drive in Gibson. On August the 29th of 2021, we had, and that significant event was Hurricane Ida. And the aftermath of Hurricane Ida has left Gibson in poor condition when it comes to the drainage ditches and the right-of-ways. Now, it's been 22 months. That's the reason I'm up here. And we, the residents of Gibson, would really like your assistance in resolving that issue. With the hurricane season upon us now, they're very concerned, and I am as well, that we will have flooding due to obstructed ditches in Gibson. Now, we understand drainage ditches are to minimize flooding, not to stop it. But we don't even have the minimum right now. So we are asking your assistance in this matter. Thank you.
Mr. Harding, would you like to address?
No.
You went, okay, all right. We have 1 more speaker card. Mr. Randy Dardar Senior from Cypress Street in Gibson would like to speak as well on the cleaning of the ditches and the water lilies. Mr. Dardar, can you please state your name and your address?
Yes, I'm Randy Dardar Sr. I'm at 640 Cypress Street, Gibson. And I'm the minister at the Gibson Church of Christ. And I'm also a member of the Concerned Citizens for Gibson. And I was asked to come and speak concerning the same thing Mr. Ed just spoke upon, the abatement of the lilies and the clearing of the waterways, because it will help with the flooding, and also the grass that need cutting. I was, really concerned about the grass on the levees. I remember I've been living in Gibson over 30 some years, and I remember that was always pristine, clean, and over the last, I don't know, year or so, it haven't been the same. I'm one of those concerned citizens that pick up the phone and call and ask what's going on, and I'll get, well, we contracted that out. Like that was the that was the answer, and that was it. No more discussion. And I just want to let everybody know that I'm really proud of what Terrebonne Parish have been able to do with building the pumps, the levees, and everything like that. We are in better shape than we was a long time ago, and I would like to see that continue. And whatever, hold up, like Mr. Ed said, whatever the hold up, whatever the problem's been, I don't believe in making excuses. I believe in finding ways to get things done, because I know and I hear and I talk to people, and this is something that's very, very concerning to them. And I appreciate, Mr. Call bringing it up because, he know that that's been a discussion for a while. I know lilies can never be eradicated, but we just want to emphasize the importance of prioritizing this effort to keep the area clean and the water flowing correctly. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Would you like Mr. Mike Toops to address that now, sir? All right.
Uh,
Mr. Harding.
Mr. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Even though we had two speakers come up here in reference to that, I have had a number of calls and made a number of trips there. I want to say not only to the folk that are here, but the folk that may be listening later on down the line. This is not the first time we had this issue up here. At one point, we were in a point where they were like the decorative lights. We couldn't figure out who was responsible and what was a decorative light, what was not a decorative light. We were in a position where we thought that wildlife and fishery was responsible for it. Then we went to the state, and then the parishes is in a position that whereas we have to do something to take care of this problem. Another thing, when in my going down there with the boots on the ground, what also I found out, Mr. Mike is going to actually, they're aware. We're trying to locate. It's the same as the difference between a parish road and a state road. Some people think it's automatically the responsibility of the parish to take care of those ditches, but then all of those ditches are not the responsibility of the parish. So we also have to distinguish what are lateral ditches that we are responsible for, and what lateral ditches are the responsibility of those people, those constituents that living in that area. So we want to actually go at it. I think to a certain point, I can agree with some of my constituents. There are areas that, I think that we have not necessarily dropped the ball, but then because of the circumstances with COVID and employees and everything that we have to do, there are some circumstances. But it's time for us to rectify that, go forward to be more efficient and serve the people. Finally, before I turn over to Mr. Toops, is the fact that unlike all the other areas in Terrebonne Parish, Montague, Chauvin, Grand Collier, Dularge, even portions of Bayou Black, the boat traffic in these areas are greater than what the boat traffic is down Bayou Black. Because the bridges are there. One particular bridge at the Gibson End Bridge, I think is kind of low there, and those lilies come there, and we have to figure out how to actually create the blood flow. And as I turn it over to Mr. Mike Toops, low rain plays a part of this too. Mr. Toops,
Mr. Toops, please.
thank you.
Mr. Toops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Harding called me and talked to me about this, I think, last week, and started by this conversation by saying he had gotten complaints from his constituents about the water lilies, the mud, and the lack of flow in Bayou Black near the East Fire Station. Well, the first answer, and it's obvious, is that we haven't had any substantial rain in over the last month, 6 weeks. So the water flow at this time of the year is caused by drainage of rainwater. The second thing I want to bring up in regards to that is that we have dropped the water level in the Chackahoola Basin 2.5 feet slowly and symptomatically over the last, I guess, about 2 years since we installed the Hanson Canal pump station and we put it online. President Dove had the foresight to tackle this problem, and we've got 3 phases. We got the Hanson Canal that's been up and running for almost 2 years. We got the Elliott Jones, which is about 5 or 6 miles up from Hanson, that's fixing to go online in the very near future. And then the third, as you all know, we got funding for another identical pump station at Geraldine Road. So what we know is that Hanson Canal pump station works. Again, we were able to pump the water down, the water level down 2.5 feet. So with the Hanson Canal pump station, Elliott Jones, in the near future, and in conjunction with St. Mary Parish putting in the Bayou Chene floodgate, when the floods come later this year, we will be ahead of the game. We'll be able to maintain the whole Chacoula Basin, and that includes everybody on Bayou Black, Gibson, Donner, all the subdivisions on Highway 311 are going to be benefiting by these pump stations. Savan Road, that whole area, we will be able to stay ahead of it. And when the rainwaters come down from the north, again, number one, the Bayou Chene floodgate is going to be able to help maintain it. And if there's a heavy rain event or whatever, Hanson Canal and Elliott Jones pump stations can maintain it. But let's get back to the lily issue. We are doing 3 distinct things right now to help with the cleanup of the lilies. I don't know if y'all can see the TVs or, okay, Ms. Tammy, this first picture is at Cannon's Landing. And you can see we got a great awl. We got it on the bridge. We got one of our dump trucks. And that little white and blue thing, that's a self-propelled barge that we're renting. It's called a truck saw, and it has a rake on the front of it. And what it does, if we go beyond the range of the boom of our great awl, we will push the lilies to the bank or to the bridge, and we'll try to remove as many lilies as possible. As you all know, there are many inaccessible areas to Bayou Black or any other of the canals that we are maintaining. So we have to pick and choose the areas that we can get our dump truck and get the great awl and get the lilies out. Ms. Tammy, can you go to the next one? Oh. Let's see. There you go. Technical difficulties. Yeah. Now, this is our great all naturally along a roadside, and I'm not sure exactly where this is, but as you can see, it is Cannon's Landing. Thank you, sir. We're able to get to the lilies from the roadside. So again, the great all is picking it up. We're going to put it in our dump truck, and we'll haul it off to be disposed of. Next picture, Miss Tammy, please. Yeah, this is the Jarvis Bridge in Gibson, and I think this is one of the bridges Mr. Harding was talking about. It's very, very low, and but again, we worked our way from the south to the north, and we've cleaned as many areas as we could physically get to. And again, we remove whatever we can. We take the truck saw machine, whatever lilies we can get, we push it to the great awl, we pick it up, put it in the dump truck, and it's removed. Next picture, ma'am. If you could make it a little bit bigger. This is another view of this truck saw machine that we're renting. And if you look real closely, you'll see they have like a bar grading screen on the front of it, and that's used to help push the lilies, let the water get through. But you see the operator, he's working the machine, pushing the lilies in this picture to the bank. Next picture, ma'am. This is another picture. In addition to picking up whatever lilies we can, this is a picture we're picking up lilies, marsh grass, and probably a lot of mud. So again, this is going to help the flow in this area. And the final picture. And this is again, you can see there's a lot of water draining out the bucket, but this is a lot of the muck that we're removing, and we're working every possible canal we can get to, every bayou, and if we have to, we'll just keep cycling and cycling until we get the lilies under control. Second thing, in addition to physically removing these, we gave Norris and Boudreaux a contract to spray the lilies with a chemical by the name of Diaquat, and it's all approved, and it kills the lilies and it allows the lilies to decompose. And then again, once the water flow resumes, it's going to push that decomposed material out. Hopefully, it'll eventually get to our pump stations, and we can pump the lilies out along with the whatever waters we have. Any questions about lilies from anybody?
I have several questions.
Yes,
So I'm
ma'am.
just going to leave your mic on, Mr. Mike, Mr. Steve Trosclair.
Actually, my question is not about lilies, it's about other drainage problems, so I'm gonna wait, I'll defer.
Mr. Babin.
Yeah, I have some about drainage as well, but I want to go along with Mike saying here. I've watched this piece of equipment operate, and this is some of the best equipment that we've seen in a long time to be able to get in there and move it. The point that was well taken, Mike, by you is the fact that not everywhere is accessible, okay? A lot of these pictures were at Miners Canal or at the Cannon's Landing. Right now, that's clean. The problem is up Miners Canal, outside the water structure, it's solid lilies for 300 yards. That's the responsibility of the state. That's not a parish responsibility, but even making it more difficult, there's a subdivision on one side and a big landowner on the other side, and you have no way of getting equipment in there to take it out. So, you know, this is a problem. And look, I represent a good portion of By Black. This is the same problem we have in By Delorge, the same problem we have in Grand Kaya, and I know Steve and Dirk will probably say the exact same thing in their area. It's a lot of it. If one thing that works, if in By Black at the Cannon's Landing, there is a pump right there that the waterworks operates. It is our water reservoir for Terrebonne Parish. There's a pumping station there. There's another one by the old Homer Golf Course. If you check that out, there's not a water lily in there because the waterwork districts use the same chemical that we're using, but there's no way for lilies to get in there. There's no lateral canals or canals because it's a closed system. So the spraying does work, and you can, I'm not going to say eradicate them, but you can control them. But all the other areas, whether the lateral canals are cleaned or not clean, it is bringing lilies as the water moves in there. And I don't think we'll ever get a full handle on it, but I think we're doing a much better job now than before. And I'll just wait to talk about the drainage stuff when we get to that, if you don't mind. But that equipment does work.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. Mr. Michelle.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Mr. Babin said, it certainly does work. The 6-foot ditch right now looks like there was never a lily in it, and they've done a great job with that. Now, I don't think they have the inaccessible problem with the 6-foot ditch that they have in other places. But my question that I have is the rental of that piece of equipment you were talking about that the guy was operating, is that something that we plan on purchasing or not?
Is my light still on? Yeah, we looked at it a couple of years ago and it was cost prohibitive. But if we need to, I may be mistaken, but I seem to remember somebody saying that the state or the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries would take care of cleaning the lilies. That never happened. So, um, to answer your question, Mr. Michelle, yeah, it's something we definitely consider in purchasing. At the time right now, I think our budget for this year is probably taken up. But I'll talk to Mr. Rome and see if we can definitely put it on next year's budget.
Okay, and I haven't looked recently, but I know we have a lily problem perpetually on in St. Louis Canal, and I don't know what the status of that is, but is that um, on the schedule to continually address?
Yes, sir. As I said before, if it's accessible, we can get equipment there. It will be addressed.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Bryan, do you have a question about the lilies?
No, it's drainage.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Carl Harding.
All right, to be point blank, in this 50-50 district that I represent, coming from that landing that in that area down Waterproof, going back down perhaps from Savannah Road, going all the way down Gibson East, Bayou Black, Jarvis, all the way down to Carroll Street. It's the mentality of the 50-50 district that I actually represent, that they drive back and forth from Homer and they see that clean and they don't understand the situation. So we basically have the problem solved, let's say from Bayou Black all the way up to the golf course. What we need to be addressing is how do we handle the problem from Savannah Road all the way down to Carroll Street. So in that budget, my suggestion in that budget, we can actually purchase one of those, extend the contract that we actually put out there, and put more money into trying to, we can't eradicate it, but we would like, I got a report that the lady said she watched an alligator walk from one side of the bayou to the other side of the bayou. You do that on dry land. So that's my point I want to put in about the lilies. These people, they feel as if that they've been slighted and they're part of Terrebonne Parish. And as their representative, you know what I mean, I'm supporting what they have brought to the table. Thank you.
And to answer that, Mr. Harding, we are addressing every district as fair as we can. It's just like anything else. When we move up in one area, we're going to try to get as many accessibility points as possible before we move to the next. And we will do a continuous cycle if need be. So we're going to go from as far south in the parish to as far north as possible. And you will continue to see this cleaning operations continue.
Thank you, Mr. Toops. Mr. John Amity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to go back to Mr. Michel's question about St. Louis Canal. I spoke to Mr. Rome last week, and Norris and Boudreaux is scheduled to go spray St. Louis Canal. So Norris and Boudreaux, I thought this was interesting, bought drones to be able to do the spraying in the hard-to-get areas where they can't get back there. So they'll be going through St. Louis Canal soon. They're scheduled to go in there soon, and they will be spraying. If anything else changes, Mr. Michel, I'll let you know, because I'm definitely following up regularly on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Amity. Mr. Steve Trosclair.
Okay, so we done with the lilies. We're moving on. Okay. I know Mr. Harding put lateral ditches in Terrebonne Parish. Part of my district is Lower Bayou Blue. Now, is Bayou Blue a lateral ditch? Is Bayou Blue a bayou? Or is Bayou Blue a drainage ditch? Okay. Regardless of what it is, I've heard different stories, but the
the parish line is either in the middle of the bayou or it's on the roadside edge of the bayou. It's somewheres in that area. So Bayou Blue is kind of a no man's land that nobody wants. And then again, it's on a long state highway. So nobody wants to deal with it. But Lower Bayou Blue still has a ton of storm debris, which is really obstructing the drainage in Bayou Blue, the flow, the water flow. Yeah, I spoke to David Rome probably a year or so ago, and they did go and they started cleaning area of it. And then I guess, pressing needs, and they couldn't just stay there and do the whole thing. But there's still a long area of Lower Bayou Blue. Uh, part of it, part of the section between 182 and Prospect, the very lower end of it, they stopped. And then from Prospect all the way to the Company Canal, probably 98% of it still has, metal debris from the hurricane, trees laid down, vegetation growing in it. So if we do get, an event with, a lot of rainwater, a storm event, we could have some serious issues in that area. So, I know Mike, Mike, but David, Mr. Rome has addressed some of it and did what he could, but we need to really get back out there some kind of way. If we have to contract it out or we can do it in-house, but we need to get out there and finish the job. Thank you.
If I can address that, Councilman Trostclair, we've had one meeting already with Royal to talk about this debris and derelict vessels. Everything they've told me is that FEMA will not cover removal of derelict vessels. So we have another meeting to talk about it in the brainstorm and see what we can do to get a funding source to deal with these derelict vessels. And I would assume some of this debris you're talking about is included with that. But we do have another meeting, and we're, again, in the past, and when I say in the past, Hurricane Katrina, FEMA did pick up derelict vessels. Some kind of way between now and then, they stopped covering that.
But, Bayou Blue does not have any derelict vessels.
It's just
Okay.
debris.
It's all debris. I mean, Bayou Blue is not a navigable waterway, okay?
Okay.
It's basically a drainage ditch, okay, in the section I'm talking about. So, I mean, whether or not FEMA funds it is not gonna stop people's houses from flooding if we don't do something about it. So, I mean, we've waited for FEMA, and if FEMA said they're not gonna do it, but then we need to look at alternative funding sources. I mean, we gotta do something. If FEMA's gonna do it, let them pay us back. Let's get them on board, but we gotta get something moving on it.
I will speak to Mr. Rome tomorrow morning.
Thank
Yes, sir. If there's any other questions, if not, I have some info about lateral ditches.
I have several more questions, but we'll definitely get that information
Okay.
first, Mr. Toops. If you don't mind, I'm going to turn your mic off, then turn you back on. We're having some camera issues. Press your button, Mr. Toops. Request to speak.
Back on. Now it's lit up. Okay. Oh, you want me to talk about lateral ditches now? I thought that was some more questions. I'm sorry. Okay, David and I and Joey and Sihan talked about this extensively. Just to let everybody know and the viewing public, we have around 11,000 miles combined of lateral ditches, regular ditches, and culverts that we maintain throughout the year. Of that, about a little more than half is lateral ditches. So we conservatively estimated about 4,000 miles of lateral ditches. Right now, we have but 2 excavator operators, and we're trying whatever we can to hire more operators, but we can't. We have the excavators, we just don't have the people to operate them. We cut and/or spray laterals at least 3 times a year, and we try to make a complete circuit of sweeping the laterals as needed at least 1 time a year. And that is our basic maintenance cycle in regards to laterals. Now, whenever we get calls that there are emergency situations, the trees falling over a lateral or whatever, we stop our maintenance of the laterals, and naturally we take care of it. But that's the information I have on laterals, and we constantly working. I wish we could get more people that could we could hire, because we have more equipment. We just don't have the people to man it, and that's the cold hard facts that we have to deal with. Any questions regarding laterals or more drainage issues?
I have several questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep your light on, Mr. Toops, but I'm going to have to do some funny stuff with the cameras over here. Mr. Brian, I'm going to turn you on, then turn you off, then turn you back on. Okay, sir? All right, Mr. Brian Pledger.
Good. Okay, Mr. Toops, I spoke with Mr. Rome myself, like some of my colleagues up here as well. It's not so much about navigable water with lilies and all that. My concern is down in the Bayou de Large area, Crozier Drive, Hidalgo, those streets. I went out and, the constituents, they calling me and they're telling me, it's hurricane season, so they wanted me to take a look at the ditches. And the ditches in my district, I mean, they're overgrown, but you can only see half of the culvert where the sediment has kind of come up. Spoke to Mr. Rome, he went out and they kind of I would say just cut the wild hairs off the top of the grass. We didn't really get in there and you know, in a robust way and dig it out. And you mentioned about we have the equipment, but we don't have the people. I don't know how it works, but maybe, we hire contractors to do it, or we can, there's people we can bring in to operate our equipment, you know. But I'm looking at, in my district, when it rains, I took my four-wheeler out there and it didn't rain long. And the water was on their sidewalk to their door, and I would hate for my folks to be displaced because of we didn't clean out the ditch a little bit. And we don't have a pump station down there. We have one of those little portable units where they have to call a guy from town, from Homa, to go down and, turn the pump on and all this. Do we really want that? We're talking about all these big, $1 million pump stations. These folks got to call a guy. I mean, and I understand we have, 11,000 miles of lateral ditches. I get it. But at the same time, I think we could do a better job at maybe prioritizing those ditches. And I just don't want, and all these are elderly folks I'm talking about, and I went out on my four-wheeler myself to actually see it. So if we can just work with me on that, I'll be sending you pictures and kind of doing whatever, but whatever I can do, or I'm sure the rest of the folks up here will do it. But if we got equipment and we don't have people to operate it, next thing we should figure out is who we can get to operate our equipment. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Can I answer that, or?
Yeah.
Couple of things. And again, this is for the council's information, and I'm sure you know this already, but for the public, you can call in specific drainage problems to our gravity drainage department, and the number is 985-873-6717. 873-6717. Or for anybody that has a computer, they can lodge a complaint online. There's 3 steps. You go to our website, www.tpcg.org. You click on the icon, government icon at the top of the page. It'll take you to another page with all of our departments. Under Public Works is gravity drainage. You click on that page, it'll bring up the page for gravity drainage. At the very bottom of the page, there's a link and it's named Make a Request. That'll bring up a specific page that you fill out your name, your address, and whatever the specific problem is. And then that definitely creates a paper trail from the onset, and this goes into our work order system. So you can, and the public can do both. They can call and give a complaint to gravity drainage, and then they can follow it up if they want to, and they have the capabilities of following these steps and doing the complaint online. It'll be entered into our work order system. And again, we normally do work orders as they come up in that order, unless we have 5 of them in a specific area. And while we have the equipment there, we try to get all 5 of them knocked out. And that's just, trying to make the best utilization of our people and of our equipment. So again, any specific complaints, please, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, you can call or email or text David, or you can call Gravity Drainage direct, or you can use these steps. Any one of them, we will try to get to them as soon as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Dirk Gidry, I'm going to turn you off, turn you back on.
Everybody turning me off. Thank you, ma'am. Water lilies are a problem everywhere, down all these bayous or whatever, but if it's a state that's responsible for these canals, you need to call your representatives and your state senators. Because when I have a problem on Bayou Lilkaya, I'll call Tanner McGee and I get it done. But I could tell you, the chemicals that they use today don't work. They can come and spray them, but it wilts the top of the leaves, but the lilies don't go away. So it's not what they used to spray. It just doesn't work. They sprayed mine about a month ago, and they need to come back and spray it again today. So whatever they're spraying, I guess it's something to do with the environment or whatever, but it does not work. It works for a short period of time, but the lilies do not die. But call your representative or your state senator and voice your complaint about it, and they'll call Wildlife and Fisheries, because it's Wildlife Fisheries' job on the Navajo Canal, or maybe some of these on Bayou Black. I'm not 100% sure about them, but it's their job to maintain these. So when you start seeing them starting to come up, you need to call, because it takes them a while to get there. So before the problem is real bad, give them a call. And we're gonna go back to all these lateral ditches. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars in Terrebonne Parish building levees, building pump stations, but we cannot maintain our lateral ditches. We've spent hundreds of millions of dollars, and we cannot hire people to get on a machine and go clean our lateral ditches, because there's a lot of lateral ditches that I know that I've complained about that still have trees in them, grasses in them. The only ones that they come and spray are these little bitty lateral ditches that they can spray with a little machine, but it doesn't seem to work, and like I said, we could build all these modern day pump stations and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stuff, but if we can't get that water to that pump station is no good. We got hundreds of millions of dollars wasted. So, but we need to do something in Terrebonne Parish. We're a tropical climate here, and this needs to be done not once a year. It does to be done a few times a year. But what we need to do is we need to hire and get people. If we got to pay them more money, we need to pay them more money. But by hiring a separate contract, we might as well pay our people more money, and we're going to keep our people, and we can work them. But no, that, we just need to get something done about this. It's bad. Like I said, we got all these models, and I'm gonna repeat myself because we got hundreds of millions of dollars we put in pump stations, and we can't get the darn water to the pump stations. And I understand these people's frustration, because down Geraldine Road and all that, these guys been flooding for a long time, for a long time. And, we could pump the Chackahoola Basin down 2.5 foot, and I'm glad for it, but we need to make sure that these guys get pumped out. And the deal with Steve, where you was talking on Bayou Blue, by Goose, by Boris the Planet and all's house, these people never flooded before in the back. They got a canal back there. Well, I'm good friends with Goose and Steve, that's his nickname. But they got a ditch in the back that I've complained about. I've had parish officials back there. They can't go there because they got a pipeline. Well, how the damn ditch got dug there to start off with, And they got a gentleman a little bit further down, a few houses down, that put dirt in across the whole bayou. And it's still there, but there's nothing we can do about it. But these people, all the way from Prospect Boulevard going south, they're flooding because we can't get to a ditch to clean it out. Because they got a pipeline. I just don't know how that ditch got there if they got pipelines already, Because I know them ditches wasn't there before the pipeline, so the pipelines were there first. But, and we're going to get back to your deal on Crozier. This has been a problem. I've been on the council for 11 and a half years. That situation has been a problem for 11 and a half years. They've had people come to this microphone right here and fussed about it. We need to do something about it. There's washing machines in the ditches, there's junks in the ditch, and that's people's fault for going through it in there. But when you got a pump that a man's got to come from somewhere else to turn on before your house floods, it's a crying shame. We should be embarrassed as a parish to spend all this money on levees and pump stations and not be able to get the water to our pump stations. Thank you.
Can I address that, please?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir, Mr. Toombs.
You talked about trees and laterals, Mr. Dirk, but if you give me a specific address, we will take care of it. Crozier, Hidalgo, we have a pump station there and we have an attendant. So whenever there's a rain event, that pump attendant should be there. If he's not, we need to be aware of it and we will straighten it out. But there is a pump attendant that takes care of the pump station behind Hidalgo Drive.
The lateral ditch behind Cleveland Street, I've complained about it and bitched about it for years and nothing's gotten done. They got a lateral, it's not a lateral ditch, it's by Grand Kaya that comes up along Grand Kaya Road. I've complained about it. It's just lately that they went in there and they fixed it. But how many years do I have to complain about it, And it's not just overnight that these trees fell in it. The one right there on by Grand Kaya that runs right behind the library on Grand Kaya Road, there was big trees in there. I complained about it, but it took a year, People don't want to hear that because the water's that far from people going in people's houses because we're not taking care of our lateral ditches. We need to take care of these people in this parish. They pay that taxes. They don't want their homes flooded. Like right now, man, everybody that got damaged from hurricanes, they're having a hard time getting back in their houses, Mike. We just need, and our big problem, because we don't have no operators, the problem is we don't pay our parish employees enough. You can go to Lafourche Parish, tractor man on the side of the road, cutting grass on the side of the road, gets $22 an hour. Terrebonne Parish, they get $16 an hour. That's $1,000 a month difference. And we got a $115 million budget. We need to find a way to pay our employees that way we can have people to operate these machines that we have. We need to dig, Candace, we need to dig some kind of way. We need to find how we can pay out, because that's the only way you're going to keep this parish rolling. You got to pay your people for what they do. Thank you.
I will talk to Mr. Rome tomorrow. We'll get together with his guys. And again, if we have specific complaints, it's much easier for us to address it than, just problems everywhere.
Yeah.
So if we have specific areas, all I know right now is behind Cleveland Street.
Yeah.
So if you want to call myself or
I did
David.
3 or 4 times to get this shit done.
Well, you never call me,
No,
sir,
I
but
don't call you. No,
I mean, if you want to, you call me and I will follow up.
Yeah.
So please call me, sir.
All right.
I will get in touch with David. I'll stay on top of it. And we'll do whatever we can. I give you my word, Mr.
Thank you,
Guidry.
sir.
Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Mr. Babin?
Yeah, so you're not on and off. Okay, we're good. Okay. You know, I agree with everybody up here. You know, we do live in a subtropical area. Vegetation is gonna grow. And I agree that, listen, let me use this analogy, and I'll date myself here. But when I was growing up and we crossed the UEP Long Bridge, one of three things were happening. They were chipping, they were priming, and they were painting. And as soon as they finished painting, they went back to chipping, priming, and painting. We need to do that here in the parish. Granted, COVID hit us and the hurricane hit us, and we down on employees. But every one of us sitting up here will be in this year's budgetary process, okay? We need to take a look at those things and say, we want to give the parish employees a raise. Let's find the money for it. We need to buy more equipment to do it. Let's find the money for it. So I'm not saying it's all on us or all on administration, but we will have a say-so in this as it comes up for next year's budget. And these pieces of equipment that are sitting idle, it's a shame. It's a shame that we can't hire people, and I agree with Dirk on this. It's because we're not paying them enough, all right? And we as a government need to do a better job at that. And as far as the lateral ditches, it's not just in one area. I mean, if we started calling in, I guarantee you'd probably have 500 of them, okay? And I don't know the answer, but maybe David and them can take a look at gridding off the parish and starting with grid 1 and do the cleaning, and then go to 2, 3, 4. And again, when they finish number 20, go back to 1 again, because it's growing again. So I know it's a difficult problem. And it's not just in the Baja areas that we represent, it's all over the parish, okay? And let's just hope that we can do a better job in the future.
Understood.
Thank you,
And
Mike.
again, I said it earlier, with the manpower and equipment we have right now, with all of the miles of laterals, we can sweep them once a year before we can go back and start the cycle again. If we had more people, more equipment, we could cut that in half. We could do double. But again, it's the hiring of the people.
Right.
Right now, at any given time, we have between 50 and 60 job openings. We maybe get 10 to 15 applicants a week, and out of that, we may hire 5, 6. So it's a losing battle,
Yes.
and nobody wants to work. It's a shame, but it's not particular to us. It's all over. Other parishes, other private sector people can't find people to work. People are looking for jobs. They're not looking to work.
Right.
Sad.
And just one more thing, I agree with Mr. Pledger. I represent by DeLodge also, but not the area of Hidalgo Street. But we have somebody sitting in the audience, Mr. Wayne Thibodeau, that I helped his sister and them when their house flooded about 8 years ago. And his sister came before this council and jumped me because I didn't have shoes on, helping him and standing in 3 foot of water. But we didn't have that portable, even the portable pump then. So in any event, it's a people problem. And we just have to find out how we can solve that people problem. And again, throwing money doesn't always get good people, okay? But we need to take a look at our salary schedule.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hidalgo Drive is a very low area, and it's got a very close proximity to the HNC. So we went one day and we had a problem. Somebody was flooding, and come to find out, we found a broken water main. But that's just one example. But we will do better. We'll try our best.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Carl Harding?
Last time, I'm gonna say something, but Danny, you mentioned that those grid 1 and 2, but I'm very concerned about those folk that's down there where I'm at. And this is my point here. We get a lot of water coming from Lafourche Parish, the other parish. And I think that's in the area Mr. Daughter, he lives over there. So we are concerned about those lateral ditches because those lateral ditches drain off into the opportunity for the Hanson, Elliott, and soon to be Geraldine. So that's the point that I want complete there. But what's very, very important, and that's was what I've been saying to my constituents. Mr. Toops just said, we have to call in. You call in and be identified, and then once you are identified, all of us up here get reports of drainage.
Correct.
Once you get that identification number, I promise you, you call in, it's registered. When you call in, what was the situation? We find out what the follow-up is, and that does not happen. Then we find out what the problem is. And once we find out what the problem is, then those phone calls goes to those people, and then we have to follow up back on those people because we paid them a reasonable amount of money. And with that reasonable amount of money that we pay them, they have a responsibility to do their job. So in order for this to work, the citizens makes the complaints. The citizens gets their identification number. They have to have a response to those folk, and if that response does not happen in the proper time, all of us up here have an opportunity to look at it. But they have to register that complaint. And then you generate that complaint, we can go from there. Pay attention to those numbers he gave you. We have forced drainage and we have gravity drainage. Two different departments, but we need to make a difference in reference to those lateral ditches that are all concern of mine to flow in to those pumps these guys mentioned to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mr. Trosclair.
Mike, I just want to, I forgot to mention this earlier. The boundary line, I did talk about of Lafourche and Terrebonne by Blue. Okay, are you aware of a distinct actual boundary line?
Mr. Trosclair, like you, I've heard center of the bayou. I've heard between the bayou and the highway, and I've heard between the center
middle
of
of
the road. So
Okay.
I'm not quite sure. I can't
Okay.
give you an answer,
Well,
sir.
another, route we may want to look at, if it is the buyer, maybe trying to get Lafourche Parish in here to help us with this too. Because if it's the center of the buyer, they should carry their responsibility on the cleanup. And I'm just gonna kind of piggyback a little bit off of Councilman Guidry, about our lateral ditches. For many, many years, they've been neglected. Now, I will venture to say that I think we've made more of a concerted effort in the last several years to clean up a lot of them. Because when you got a tree that has a trunk this big around growing in the middle of the ditch, that didn't happen in 1 year. That didn't happen in 2 years. It didn't happen in 10 years, okay? So for years and years and years, they've been neglected. So it's not just on this council or the last council or the council before that or the administration before that. This has been an ongoing problem. So yeah, it's getting to be old news for people that watch that tree grow from a sapling to a full grown, oak tree or weeping willow or whatever it is. So that's the frustration that a lot of people are seeing. When you see these ditches and you see those big trees growing out in the middle of it. It's not a tree that fell over from a storm that's blocking, it's a tree that actually grew there. So that's kind of, the frustrations that a lot of people are having, and rightfully so. So I feel like, we have, as a parish, been proactive more so in the last, say, 10 years than we have been in the previous 50 years. But I mean, it's still maybe not enough, quick enough. So whatever we can do, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Trosclair. Mr. Pledger.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We're talking about the lateral ditches, we're talking about the lilies. And all I'm hearing is that we're, fighting a problem, but we're not. It's such an old-fashioned way of doing things. Let's look, we have a problem with water lilies. I just want to give you, for instance, if we recycle trash, I'm sure with modern technology of today, water lilies can have some sort of medicinal, some sort of purpose in this world. All right? we can probably, we're trying to fight a problem. Excuse me, guys.
Hey, guys.
We're trying to fight a problem that, fight a war that we might not even have to go on the battlefield for. If we search out and seek out various ways of medicinal reasons, or someone's probably looking for lilies somewhere, whether it's domestic or abroad. But we have to do that. So let's look at all options versus we want to fight this fight. Let's try and see if somebody else can fight it for us or help us fight it.
We could make a recipe for it. We'd eat it.
I mean, we eat kale. That's dressing on the buffet. Thanks, Madam Chair.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm not eating any water lilies. Mr. Michelle.
Thank you. I'm not eating any kale either. But, so, you know, I can't go without mentioning a couple of spots because other people have mentioned it, and I don't want my constituents to think I don't care about them. But three things. One is behind Delray Boulevard. They started to clean it, but they didn't do the middle of the ditch, and they didn't do the front block. I mean, Delray's only one block, but the ditch continues. But they didn't do the block, and it's horrible right there on the corner of Park and the houses on the back of Delray Boulevard. It's terrible there. So if they could do something with that. The second one is the lateral ditch between Buquet Street and Ziegler Street. And the third one, and I think they may have cleaned the ditch, but they're leaving some trees behind the 700 block of Broadmoor Avenue. And there's specifically one of these water oak trees that kind of grow like junk trees, and they grow very quickly. And I've asked over and over again a long time ago to have that thing cut down. They don't want to do it because it's, quote, a healthy tree. And I understand that, but it's going to grow to become problematic to that ditch. So if we could get that cut down, that would be great. And I have seen an improvement in the lateral ditch maintenance, but there's still some more to go. And I certainly hope this council remembers this conversation when it's time to approve the budget. It's our responsibility to make sure that that the proper amount of money is budgeted for this. If we don't make sure it's budgeted, and if we don't call administration to task when it's time, not that they're not doing their best, but we're here to look over it and to approve it, then it becomes our problem and the problem of our constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Michelle. And it would be unfair to my constituent as well to kind of chime in just a little bit. Now, I won't keep this very long, but Mr. Toops, behind Morrison, I get calls all the time. They clean part of it, but the part behind the people's homes, it has been cleaned before, so I know that we can get equipment back there, but they're getting a lot of alligators in their yards. I know St. Louis Canal as well, it was mentioned earlier. And then, just a couple kind of things to add on. Mr. Pledger had talked about recycling the lilies. I knew that lilies do make really good mulch. So if we could find a way to dry those lilies out, that would be really wonderful. And just so that the constituents know, when you guys call us and we call a complaint for you, we get in line behind every other complaint. So it's not that we supersede anything because we're council people. We have to get in line as well. But Mr. Toops, I know we've got some really great technology in this parish, but I challenge you, let's make that technology a little bit better. I know the sheriff just implemented an app that you can actually report crimes on an app or report complaints or anything like that. Let's get an app for Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. That way it's much more user friendly for people, because I do find that our website can be a little difficult sometimes. And so if we had an app where we could just press one button and then file that complaint, regardless if it's a road, it's a drainage problem, a stop sign replacement, a light, whatever that is, I think that would be really great technology, especially moving this parish forward. But I did appreciate this conversation. I hope the residents of the parish appreciate it as well. Mr. Toops.
Question, you're talking about an app for council members or the
No, an
entire
app
public?
for anyone.
For the
Like,
public?
yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. And I'm sure Sheriff Sonye would share with you what he's done with the sheriff's department, which I think is a really, really great thing. But it's an app, and you literally just, you
Okay.
press on the app, and you could file whatever complaint it is. It would go straight to Terrebonne Parish. So thank you very much. Can we go into 6:30 public hearing?
Motion to go into 6:30 public hearing?
We have a motion to go to the 6:30 public hearing by Mr. John Amity and a second by Mr. Carl Harding. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas, motion passes. We do have, one speaker card, Mr. Wayne Thibodeau, but since, Mr. Wayne, since it is public, public hearings, would you like to just come up for those items? That would be great, sir. Yeah, we're in public hearing now, yes, sir. So when it's time for, we come up to your agenda, sir, when, Mr. Thibodeau, when they come up to your items, you wanted item E and G, I'll call you up, okay? All right, thank you, sir. All right. Item A, an ordinance to authorize the acquisition of revised lots D2 and D3 for the expansion of Bayou Country Sports Park. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Gerald Michel. And a second by Mr. Carl Harding. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, public is closed. Motion to adopt by Mr. Gerald Michel and a second by Mr. Carl Harding. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, motion passes. Item B, an ordinance to amend the 2023 adopted operating budget and budgeted positions of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Homa Police Department, $2,443. General Fund, Office of Emergency Preparedness, 2021 Cities Readiness Initiative, $23,839. Homa Police Department, LCLC Grant, $118,440. Homa Police Department, LCLE Grant, $75,933. Homa Police Department, LCLE Grant, $65,933. Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, $953,245. Housing and Human Services, Head Start HVAC System, $27,687. Housing and Human Services, Head Start HVAC System, $10,000. Head Start Camera System, $55,733. Head Start $32,332. Add-on 1 full-time program specialist, grade 206. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Dirk Gidry, second by Mr. Gerald Michel. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas. Motion to adopt by Mr. Gerald Michel. Second by Mr. Dirk Gidry. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, motion passes. Item C, an ordinance to rename Exchange Alley as Graham Douglas Lane. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Carl Harding, a second by Mr. Gerald Michel. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas. Motion to adopt by Mr. Carl Harding. Second by Mr. Gerald Michel. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, motion passes. Item D, an ordinance to authorize the acquisition from Irvin and Sandra Pellegrin certain immovable property located at 400 Lower Country Drive, Berg, Louisiana, and to provide for related matters. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Danny Babin, the second by Mr. Dirk Gidry. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, public is closed. Motion to adopt by Mr. Dirk Gidry, second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, motion passes. Item E, an ordinance to restructure Chapter 6 of the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances by amending sections 6-122 and 6-127 to regulate the use of advertisement signs. Public once, public twice. Mr. Thibodeau? Give us 1 second, we're going to turn you on. Okay, you're on now, sir.
I'm ready.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Wayne Thibodeau. I reside at 2603 West Main Street in Gray, Louisiana. And I want to ask at section 6.127, the adjectives of the signage regarding defamatory, slanderous, and so on. I represent a political action committee in Terrebonne called We Love Terrebonne. last election, we had some signage out and it said anybody but. And just want to know if that's considered slanderous or defamatory.
Mr. Bryan, do you have an answer for that? You have to turn on your light, sir.
Not tonight. I mean, I'd like to, if you do need an answer, I would like to research to feel comfortable giving an opinion.
Okay, would that possibly be something that we could have in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Michel?
Yeah, and I have the same concern. There's a lot of language in here that is questionable, language that might be covered by other laws that we don't need to put in this particular ordinance. And I don't have specifics right now, but I find this ordinance problematic, and I don't know who wrote it. But I don't know of any, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to be corrected. I don't know of any council member who was given this before it was presented to us 2 weeks ago. So if somebody was, I would love to know that. But this is something that should have been discussed before a version was put on to make it become ordinance and a law of Terrebonne Parish. And I think we should vote against this. And let's take a closer look at it as a council before we put it up for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. Mr. Amity?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason we're doing this is based off an opinion of the Attorney General, who said that it was by putting this stipulation of you can't put signs out until 90 days before qualifying was unconstitutional under freedom of speech. And my concern is on the 6-127 prohibited signs, where it says, and I can understand defamatory and slanderous, but and or against public policy. I think everybody has a right to put out a sign on what they think about public policy. So I would question that section. That's why I'll be voting on it tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Any other discussion? Can we close public hearing on this one? Okay. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Gerald Michel, second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, public is closed. Can we get a motion to adopt?
Okay, I make a motion that we close this item and not vote on it.
Do we have a second?
No. Question. You're saying close this item and not vote on it. Do you
Bring
want
it
to
back
hold, you want
for
the
2 weeks.
administration to look at it and bring it back up in 2 weeks?
over for 2 weeks.
I don't have a problem with that, but to close it makes it sound like it's final.
No,
Okay? Would you like to amend your motion?
to hold it over for 2 weeks.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table it.
Okay, so we have a motion to the table by Mr. Gerald Michel and a second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. I'm sorry, we have a light by Mr. Gerald Michel before we vote. Mr. Michel?
Yeah, I would certainly like for legal and or administration to get with members of the council to get a feel for what the problems are and how it can be resolved before we bring this back forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. So we have a motion and a second, a motion to table this for 2 weeks and a second. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas. This will be held over for 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Item F, an ordinance to authorize the relocation of a Terrebonne Parish precinct polling location for the election of October 14th, 2023, and all subsequent elections. Public once, public twice, third time public.
Motion to close.
Motion to close by Mr.
Excuse me, I thought Mr. Thibodeau wanted to speak on this.
Oh,
item.
no.
No, he has a number G.
Okay.
Yes, yes, sir. We have a motion to close public by Mr. Dirk Gidry and a second by Mr. Michelle. Members, vote your machines.
Motion to adopt.
We have, yes, we close public and then, motion to adopt by Mr. Dirk Gidry. Second by Mr. Gerald Michelle. Members, vote your machines. We have 7 yeas. Motion passes. Item G, an ordinance to amend the Terrebonne Parish Recreation Policy and Procedure Manual to address the attendance of districts to the parish president's recreation advisory meeting. Public once, public twice. Mr. Thibodeau? Give us 1 second. We're going to turn on your light, sir. New technology. I'm sorry about that.
They didn't have this when I was up there.
Go ahead.
You can go, sir.
I'm good?
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Madam Chairperson, council members. You know, I'm a citizen of Rec District 1, and I'm just wondering why, you know, I'm sure most of you know that the rec districts are a separate body politic. They're their own political subdivision. I think it's at 334562. It creates them, rec districts, as a body politics, and it confers on them all powers to do all things. The council is compelling a member of the rec district, compelling. You can't, I think you're wrong in that. You're compelling a member to attend 8 out of 11 advisory board meetings. I'm not sure you have the power to do that. Probably it would have been better had a resolution been passed offering, asking, or suggesting that they do it. But again, as we argued about the consolidation, I think the council is again overstepping their boundaries, overreaching, because you wouldn't tell the fire district they have to come here. You wouldn't tell the waterworks district board they'd have to come here. And there's no different. They're a political subdivision. The revised statute, it's statutory. And to me, the council cannot and should not compel them to do what you're trying to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public once, public twice, third time public. Motion to close by Mr. Gerald Michelle.
Second.
Second by Mr. John Amity. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas. We have to do a motion to adopt first. Motion to adopt by Mr. Gerald Michelle. Second by Mr. John Amity. Mr. Steve Trosclair, you have a light.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to agree with Mr. Thibodeau and a lot of what he said. You know, I didn't vote to put this on here to start with, and I'm certainly not gonna vote for it tonight. But Candace, I still got a question is, if we mandate these people to show up to a meeting, what are we gonna do if they don't? What's the repercussions? So it's a total waste of time to do this if we have nothing that compels these guys that they have to do it, which I don't think they should be. But at the end of the day, we have no repercussions if they don't follow suit. So why put this in the ordinance knowing darn well that we can't enforce it? We have no bounds and no criteria to enforce this. Now, this president's advisory board was put together by President Dove. It wasn't put together by resolution. It wasn't put together by ordinance. So, I mean, we have nothing that has any teeth to mandate this and have a legal repercussion behind it.
I think the only answer that I would have for you for that, Mr. Trusclair, is it would be up to this council on what the repercussion would be on removing board members or not removing board members. All that I know is I am supplying the requirements from the policy and what each district's not following. So once it gets to the council's hands, it's completely out of my hands.
Correct. And I understand that. I really do. I just want to put it out there. And then once again, the only authority that we have as a council is to remove board members. Now, if a district has a board member that doesn't show up, what board member do we remove? Do we remove the whole board? You know, it's it has no bounds on it. I mean, we're getting into the situation here that all it's going to do is make a bunch of people mad, and there's nothing we can do to remedy it.
Thank you, Mr. Trosclair. Mr. Michel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are two things that can be done. One is, as was previously stated, is that we can remove someone from the board if we know who is the quote problem board member in this situation. And the second one is we can place the entire district in oversight. So we can do either one of those two things. And my suggestion to each member of this council is if we're not willing to do one of those two things, if we're not willing to give it teeth, then we should absolutely vote against this. But we should also eliminate the policy and procedure manuals that we came up with, because if we're not going to use our authority over these boards to try to make the recreation districts better, then we just need to step back and let them do whatever they want. And I don't think that's the answer. I think we need to approve this, and we need to also let the recreation districts know, number one, how much we appreciate what they do, but number two, how much they need to work in I can't think of. In cooperation with the other districts of the parish and with parish administration and with this board, and they will find out that we will be an asset to them. We're not just looking to keep our thumb on them. We want them to do the best we can. We want to be a resource to them to help them to do better. But the only way we can do that is if as individual council members, we agree that if they're not doing it the way that Terrebonne Parish law and ordinance says to do it, that either the member is going to be removed or the district is going to be placed in oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I 100% agree with you. Mr. Harding.
It seems like the positions of politics has actually been going around in circles. It's been my position in there because even though you're going to put me in a position, and I agree with Mr. Thibodeau to a point, with one exception is the fact that, I do believe that they should send a representative to this particular meeting. But they cannot be compelled to go to this meeting because, like Mr. Trusclair said, there's no teeth to it. And looking at it, to eliminate something that we have, I do believe that in recent years, the opportunities to actually create a manual that you actually have that have politics to be played into it. We will find later on down the line, I do believe my sanctified imagination, somewhere down the line, in this meeting, this council meeting that we're going to have, politics is going to play a role there. So when you go take politics, then who has the advantage? Who has the disadvantage? And we have here the gumption to actually say you're going to get rid of a whole board because someone didn't attend. And in this day and age, as much communication skill. You said you could. We could. Not you could. You said we could. Oversight, they're just like giving rid of those board because they don't have a hell of beans to deal with. Okay, we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there because we're going to go deep. We can go deeper than this, but then we're going to keep it like this and we're going to keep it kind of cordial between the two of us because we already know the intent. This whole thing. So I'm going to keep it simple and say I'm agreeing.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mr. Trosclair.
Yes, and in reference to Mr. Michel's comment about removing a board member, this ordinance that we're trying to pass don't specify what board member goes to that meeting. So who do you pull? I voted for a whole new policy manual that we gave to all the rec districts. Okay, and that policy manual covers oversight, and it covers everything except mandate that they go to 8 meetings a year, which is was that board, in my opinion, was a feel-good board when President Dell put it together. And it really is not, in my opinion, it's not necessary that we mandate they go. I would like to see everybody go, but I don't see how we can mandate they go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Babin?
Yeah, we as a council have authority to either put on oversight or get rid of a member in a rec board, okay, on all of the rec boards. Again, and everybody's alluding to it now, this is an advisory board that was put together by the parish president to try to do some good, to try to get everybody together. But I agree with Steve 100%. We don't have, where do we have the authority to mandate somebody on an advisory board that was not put up by ordinance or resolution? I find it difficult for us to believe that we have that authority over them to say you have to make 8 meetings out of 12 or 8 meetings out of 11. Sure, we'd like to all see them go to the meetings. If we want recreation to get where it should be, then we need to start participating. Everybody needs to participate. But the problem with this, as I see it, is I think we jumping from the pot into the fire, because again, I don't see that we have authority to do anything to anybody if they don't get up. With that being said, I'll make a substitute motion to table this for 30 days for us to take a look at this in a better light to see if in fact, first of all, do we have the authority to do it? Or if we need to pass an ordinance to do it, or do we really need it at all? So I make that substitute motion to hold this over for 30 days or until the first meeting in August.
We have a substitute motion by Mr. Babin to hold this over for 30 days and revisit, and a second by Mr. Dirk Gidry. Members, vote your machines on the substitute motion. We have 8 yeas. We'll hold this over for 30
Good,
days.
thank you.
Motion to go back in regular order?
Motion to go back in regular order by Mr. Dirk Gidry. We don't have any other, yeah, okay. There's no other, yeah. All right. Item 3, committee reports. Public Service Committee, Mr. Carl Harding.
I motion that that the council accept and ratify the minutes held in Public Service Committee held on June 26, 2023, and have 2 public hearings. The first one is introducing ordinance to restructure Chapter 12 of the Terrebonne Parish Code of adopting Section 12-75 to construct barrel pits and call on a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, July 12, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. The second one is to introduce an ordinance to authorizing the parish president to enter into a corporate endeavor agreement with the South Central Regional Affordable Community Housing Authority, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, to donate 600 and 602 Westview Drive to a nonprofit to a nonprofit, enabling the building to affordable housing, and call for a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, July 12, 2023 at 6:30 p.m.
We have a motion by Mr. Harding, a second by Mr. So sorry, Mike wasn't on. We have a motion by Mr. Harding and a second by Mr. Trosclair. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas. Motion passes. Item B, Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Dirk Gidry.
I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee held on June 26, 2023, and I have 1 public hearing. Given notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the 2023 adopted operating budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Hurricane Ida Recovery Fund, $12,117,511. Utility Fund, $200,000. Parish-wide Recreation Fund, $50,000. Restore Act Hollywood Road Bridge Extension, $795,512. And call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, July 12, 2023 at 6:30 p.m.
We have a motion by Mr. Guidry and a second by Mr. John Amity. Members, vote your machines. Eight yeas, motion passes. Item C, Community Development and Planning Committee, Mr. John Amity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Community Development and Planning Committee held on June 26, 2023, and I have two public hearings. The first is giving notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the parish of Terrebonne so as to rezone from R1 single-family residential to R3 multifamily residential, Lot 41, Block B, Mechanicville, 122 Banks Avenue, Homa, Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Freddie Johnson, applicant, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. The second is giving notice of intent to adopt an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the parish of Terrebonne so as to rezone from open land and R1 single-family residential to R1, from open land to R1 single-family residential, Lot 13, Block 2, Woodlawn Ranch Acres, addendum number 3, 773 East Woodlawn Ranch Road, Homa, Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Leslie Marie, applicant, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m.
We have a motion by Mr. Amity and a second by Mr. Harding. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas, motion passes. Item 4, streetlights. As per by Mr. Gerald Michel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dirk Guidry. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas, motion passes. Item 5, appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. Item A, Recreation District Number 11 Board, one expired term on 7/1/2023. Miss Molly Arrington submits application and resume for consideration. Mr. Michael D. Jones expresses his interest in being reappointed. Mr. Lionel L. Lewis Jr. submits application resume for consideration. Miss Nashana McGuire submits application and resume for consideration. We have a motion to open, close, and vote by Mr. Michel and a second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. No, I'm sorry. Can we please get a roll call vote?
Mr. Michel,
Ms. Arrington?
Mr. Amity,
Arrington?
Ms. Domain,
Arrington?
Mr. Darren Guidry, Mr. Babin, Mr. Dirk Guidry,
Mr. Lewis?
Ms. Trustclair, Mr. Trustclair. Mr. Pleasure,
Lewis.
Mr. Harding. We have 4 from Mrs. Arrington and 4 from Mr. Lewis. Can we have a tie?
I'll make a motion to revote.
We have a motion to revote by Mr. Dirk Guidry. And a second by Mr. Brian Pledger. Can we please get another roll call vote?
Mr. Michel,
Ms. Arrington?
Mr. Amity,
Arrington?
Ms. Domain,
Arrington?
Mr. Darren Guidry, Mr. Babin,
Arrington?
Mr. Dirk Guidry,
Mr. Lewis?
Mr. Trustclair, Mr. Pleasure,
Lewis.
Mr. Harding.
I make a motion that we hold this over for 2 weeks, since it looks like we'll be voting all night and come up with the same conclusion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Babin and a second by Mr. Michel. Members, vote your machines. We have 8 yeas. We will hold this over until we have a full council present. Item B, Terrebonne Parish Health System Hospital Service District Number 1 Board, 3 expired terms on 7/31/2023. Dr. Robert M. Alexander expresses his interest in being reappointed. Mr. Earl Hughes expresses his interest in being reappointed. Ms. Bernadette Pickett expresses her interest in being reappointed. A motion to open, close, and reappoint by Mr. Danny Babin, second by Mr. Gerald Michel. Members, vote your machines. We have 7 yays, well, 8 yays. Congratulations to those 3. Mr. Earl, you're actually in the audience today. Would you like to say a few words? No. Well, congratulations, sir. Item C, Recreation District Number 3A Board, 1 expired term. Mr. J. Wayne Celestine submits application and resume for consideration. Motion to open, close, and appoint by Mr. Steve Trosclair, second by Mr. John Amity. Members, vote your machines. 8 yeas. Congratulations to Mr. Celestine. Item 6, vacancies to various boards, committees, and commissions. Recreation District Number 2-3 Board, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Recreation District Number 6 Board, 1 expired term on 7/31/2023 and 1 expired term. Home Board of Adjustments, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Planning and Zoning Commission, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Announcements, Parish President, Mr. Toops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody should have got a flyer, and President Dove would like to invite the entire council and the viewing public to our first annual Good Earth 4th of July Festival. It's going to be held, of course, on July 4th at the Bayou Country Sports Park. There will be 5 bands, live bands performing from noon to 9 o'clock at night. And we will follow that at 9 o'clock with a fireworks spectacular. There'll be food, drinks. Please bring your own chairs or picnic blankets. And we're requesting nobody brings ice chest. But from what I understand, it should be a really good time. The fireworks will be like what we used to have in the past. So that's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Toops. Mr. Michel.
Thank you. Just, I ask everyone to be cautious and considerate during this 4th of July celebration with the fireworks. And I ask all those who are able to please go and donate blood. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
Yeah, I would like to say I appreciate the efforts that was brought forth in our item number 1, the efforts that I was assisted with through the administration. And then I actually like to say that I appreciate the efforts and the input that my colleagues put into that, because it is a matter that needs to be addressed. And I thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. We make a good team. Mr. Guidry.
I'd just like to say happy birthday, America, on July 4th. And on Saturday, if you're not doing too much, at the end of Cocodrie Saturday night, there will be a fireworks display. So just go all the way to the end of Highway 56 in Cocodrie, and it's usually a nice time, you know. So it's put on by private people. So come on out and enjoy it. Come on down to Bayou and pass a good time.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Mr. Babin.
Yeah, just to get it on the record, I have a lot going on in District 7 in terms of bridges at this point in time. On Bayou Black, the Mandalay Bridge at Mike St. Martin's house was deemed unsafe, so it had to be closed. That didn't have anything to do with the next bridge up about a mile and a half, the Hollywood Extension Bridge, which we're building a new bridge there. Per Mr. Toops on Monday night, hopefully by the end of August, all the papers are signed, they'll start construction. 270 days is what the construction time should be. Down Grand Kaya, we all know, because I bring it up so often, that the Buquet Bridge is out. I think they're making some headway on that, but also the bridge about 4 miles up, the Combo Bridge, starting on July 17th through July 31st, will only have 1 lane operational to vehicular traffic. There will be no marine traffic that will be able to pass at that time, because we need to do some maintenance on that bridge. There's only 3 bridges on Grand Kaya. If that one goes out, we have no way of getting fire trucks, garbage trucks, and school buses across a 1-lane bridge. So it's going to be inconvenient to have 1 lane because we don't have a Buquet Bridge, but please, this is all for the good of the area. So thank you very much, and again, happy birthday, America.
Thank you, Mr. Babin, and I'd like to wish everybody a safe and happy 4th of July, and go Tigers. Motion adjourned by Mr. John Amity. Second by Mr. Danny Babin. Members, vote your machines. Good night, everyone.